Today is the 200th anniversary of the death of the English poet John Keats, who died in Rome of tuberculosis in February 1821 at the tragically young age of 25. Like many readers who've come to love Keats's poetry, I discovered him as a teenager. In fact, I wrote my GCSE English coursework on his work. And now, over 30 years later, I find myself teaching those poems, the sonnets, the great odes, the narrative poems such as the Eve of St. Agnes, to A-level students here at the Oratory. Why should we still read Keats after 200 years? What can he teach us? What can we learn from him? Well, I think there are many answers to these questions, although I'm not sure that Keats would have thought that poetry, least of all his, can teach us anything in that didactic sense. We hate poetry that has a palpable design on us, he observed. But Keats can teach us how important it is to try to inhabit the worldview of the other, what we call empathy. He says that the poet has no identity of his or her own, but rather becomes the thing he or she describes. For example, even though Keats is clearly on the side of progress in politics and history, when he describes the defeat of the Titans in Hyperion, he makes us feel their sense of loss and bewilderment. This quality of empathy is a good and timely lesson for us to learn. Keats can teach us to try to make the most of all experience, whether it be apparently good or bad, bursting joy's grape against our palate fine, or glutting our sorrow on a morning rose. He can show us that it is completely natural to yearn to escape from what he called the pains and troubles of life, and heaven knows he had enough of them to contend with, from repeated bereavement, financial worries, professional doubts, romantic agonies, vicious attacks from the critics, to his own failing health, his death warrant as he recognised the blood he coughed up to be. But he also shows us that, while a completely natural desire, to leave the world behind unseen, as he puts it, is to do just that, not to see it, and therefore not to experience its beauty as well as its darkness. And it's this most of all that I love about Keats. For all his wonderful language, and no one writing in English describes things and feelings more beautifully than he does, it's his sheer intellectual and aesthetic courage to face life, even though, for we who are alive, as opposed to those figures frozen on the urn, life and love will end, time will pass, beauty will fade, and we will die. So, as he says of the urn and of art itself, Keats, through his poetry, can be a friend to man, and to woman, of course. His poetry has certainly been a friend to me for more than 30 years, and hopefully will be for many more. This is a short passage from the opening of Keats's The Fall of Hyperion, a dream. Fanatics have their dreams, wherewith they weave a paradise for a sect. The savage too, from forth the loftiest fashion of his sleep, guesses at heaven. Pity these have not traced upon vellum or wild Indian leaf the shadows of melodious utterance, but bare of laurel, they live, dream, and die. For poesy alone can tell her dreams, with the fine spell of words alone can save imagination from the sable charm and dumb enchantment. Who alive can say, thou art no poet, mayest not tell thy dreams? Since every man whose soul is not a clod hath visions, and would speak if he had loved and been well nurtured in his mother tongue. Whether the dream now purposed to rehearse be poets or fanatics, will be known when this warm scribe, my hand, is in the grave.